It's no secret that trucks are more expensive than they used to be. In fact, everything is more expensive than it used to be. The 2024 Toyota Tundra starts at just under $40,000, but Toyota's doing things differently. You see, it features a twin turbocharged V6, which produces more horsepower and more torque than you'll find in the V8s in the competition. The Tundra also features rear coil spring suspension, something you could only get in the Ram competition. And just like its competitors, the Tundra is produced in the good old US of A right in San Antonio, Texas. Moving on to the exterior of our Toyota Tundra. This particular truck is a limited model, and it has the nightshade package, which blacks out some of the various trim that you'll see throughout the truck as well. Now, this truck, as optioned, is about $65,000, but like I mentioned earlier, you can get it for less than that or more than that if you opt for the higher trim, either the capstone or even the TRD off-road packages. They are pretty good looking trucks, and this body style debuted in 2022, and you'll notice the grille on this one is black in the front. We do have LED lighting as well, which is always great and almost expected at this point. And if we come to the side here, we also have these black 20-inch wheels, which are in fact part of the nightshade package. This truck, being a limited, a little bit higher trim, also has the bigger iForce Max, so we have a badge noting that as well on the top of the hood, which is kind of a cool feature. If you have the bigger engine in your Tundra, it's nice to let people know that you do in fact have the bigger engine. We also have some black side cladding, which is fairly common these days on most vehicles. And as we come back to the mirrors, these are actually an option. So this is equipped with what they call their tow mirrors. So these tow mirrors can actually be extended while towing to get better visibility, or if you just want to mess around with them, you can do that too, but these are not the standard mirrors that you'd find on the Tundra. You do get keyless entry, more blacked out badges, part of that nightshade package. The rear glass on our crew cab here is in fact tinted, and as we come to the back, we have what is a Toyota Tundra staple, of course, the rear window being able to lower, which is a fantastic feature that the entire window goes down as opposed to just the centerpiece. As we move back, we have our beautiful aluminum bed here, which features a fantastic feature. In fact, they call it the bump release. So on the side of the taillights here, there's actually a button that you can bump into, and then that'll actually drop the tailgate, which I think is a fantastic feature. It's almost something that you would expect to find like the toes, that, you know, using your foot on hatchback models to open it. It's a great convenience measure, and I'm glad that they did it like this, because this makes it way easier to drop it if you're carrying something heavy and maybe you forgot to put it on your tailgate. That makes it incredibly easy to use. We also feature that multi-link rear suspension, which has coil springs, making a smoother ride in the Toyota as opposed to some of the competition. And the Tundra models, depending on which one you get, has a towing capacity of up to 12,000 pounds, which is a lot, certainly a lot more than you'll find in a lot of the SUVs, but that's probably the reason you bought a truck in the first place, isn't it? On top of that, this can of course be four-wheel drive and taken off-road if you want, but the Limited is going to be a bit more of a premium model, but it looks fantastic in our beautiful smoked mesquite, which is this just great metallic brown. That with the nightshade package really pops, in my opinion. It just looks fantastic. So the powertrains for the Toyota Tundra come in two different flavors. They are both twin turbocharged 3.5 liter V6s, which are technically 3.4 liter V6s, but Toyota calls it a 3.5 liter V6, so that's what we're going to call it. Now, this particular truck has the Max engine, which is the higher output version. And what makes it special is the fact that it's actually a mild hybrid. You see, it features an electric motor that is tucked in between the transmission and the engine to produce more output, which is fantastic. You can also technically do things like torque fill with that as well, which is a fantastic setup. Now, this engine is good for 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque, which is a considerable improvement over the V8 powered competition. And that's absolutely incredible for when it comes to a truck, and obviously going to improve your towing capabilities as well. So that's all good news there. It's paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission, which on this truck also has the four-wheel drive capability. So it has a electronically shifting transfer case as well, so you can have on-demand four-wheel drive, which is a great thing to have for trucks and off-roading, whatever you're going to use it for. I think every truck should have four-wheel drive, personally. Now, on top of that, this is quite an interesting powertrain because it can do 0 to 60 in just 5.7 seconds and a quarter-mile time of 14.5 seconds. That is insanely fast, especially when you consider that this truck weighs 6,100 pounds. That is not light. This truck is faster than performance cars that came out not that long ago, which is absolutely absolutely insane to think about, and just more, interesting, I guess, props to how impressive Toyota's engineering department is and how cool this powertrain is, which is unlike what you'll find in the competition. In fact, in order to get 6 cylinders in some of the other vehicles, you might have to check out the diesel models. Now, on top of that, I should point something out. Now, this is a hybrid engine, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily good for gas mileage. You see, the Tundra has a rating of 19 miles per gallon city, 22 miles per gallon highway, and combined rating of 20 miles per gallon. That's not great. It is still a pickup truck after all, and it is still shaped like a brick as far as the aerodynamics go. And some of the other Tundra models can technically get a front air dam that's supposed to help improve your aerodynamics, but it's still not that great. But then again, you don't really buy a truck for the fuel economy, do you? So moving on to the interior, there is a lot to like. It feels very industrial and very rough and tough as a vehicle, but it's also very a Toyota interior. There's lots of physical buttons and everything's built to last and everything just works. But we do have a fair amount of luxury features as well. So for example, starting with the seats, which are made out of Syntex, which is Toyota's anti-spill faux leather material. These are actually heated and ventilated front seats, which are quite nice. They are power adjustable, and you even get dual zone climate control, meaning you can split the climate controls. Now, those luxuries don't carry over into the back, but you do still get plenty of room, and of course you do get USB chargers as well for those sitting in the back. This vehicle even has a sunroof, which actually runs the entire length of the cabin, which is quite nice because that means whether you're going off-roading and you want to just look out, or you just want to sort of expand the space as well, that's pretty easy to do, and it's a nice feature. Now, moving on to the overall technology in here, the big thing to talk about is this absolutely massive screen in the middle, which is in fact a touchscreen, and the best part about it perhaps is that it uses Toyota's infotainment system, which is one of the better systems out there on the market, and as it turns out, the only way to get it is to buy a Toyota. So that's a big advantage of the Tundra. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and of course it does have navigation and Sirius XM and those types of things. And this particular truck has the JBL 12-speaker premium audio system, which is pretty good for the money. It is a cool add-on that is probably worth it should you be spending a lot of time driving on the longer trips in your vehicle. I like how robust some of these fans are. The climate control is just below that. You do get USB ports. Everything's pretty easy to use. A Qi wireless charger, but we have some of the more interesting functionality components below that, including the fact that I like that there's actually a physical shifter. There's a lot of confidence that goes into actually moving the shifter for the transmission as opposed to just turning a dial. It's a lot more confidence instilling in my opinion, so I kind of like that it is the physical style in this truck. You do get camera buttons, so you can see that, which is useful for off-roading and parking, depending on what you're going to be using it more for. Below that, we do get cup holders and things. More importantly, we get our four-wheel drive select, which is this sort of push and slide select switch. You do get 2 high, obviously, 4 high, and then 4 low. So interesting, depending on what you want to use. You have your tow select button, which also doubles as your drive mode selector. So this truck is fairly simple, no complexity for drive modes. You simply have a sport and an eco mode, and that sport mode is essentially going to gear up the transmission and the engine to just shift a little bit faster, hold the revs out, and feel more sporting, which this truck is very fast, so it does feel very sporty. And then eco mode is actually going to sort of restrict on the gas pedal to try and improve your overall fuel economy. So that's what those are going to do. In front of the driver, we have another digital display as well, which in this case actually shows us our boost gauge because it's a twin turbo engine, but it's also going to show us our hybrid sort of battery gauge. And they're sort of dumb gauges. They're not overall that useful, but they are there nonetheless, so you can see everything that's going on with your truck. Now, of course, a lot of that can be managed. It's a simple system, but it is very functional, and I quite like the way Toyota set this thing up. Obviously, having lots of physical buttons in addition to the usage of the touchscreen means that this vehicle is technically a bit safer in the grand schemes of how it feels. Everything is quite comfy. There's lots of headroom. I like the fact that we have the Super Tundra features here in the top, like lowering the back window. It's been a staple of the Tundra forever, and I love it that it's in this new Tundra as well. The back seat is totally fine, and from a usability point, it's just a simple truck, and I think what they tried to do is give you the luxuries that mattered, like heated and ventilated power seats, and then everything else is really comes down to a functionality basis and just overall just general comfort in a vehicle that should last, because after all, odds are when you're buying a Toyota, part of that consideration is the overall reliability of the badge. So a pretty nice vehicle, simple interior, but absolutely functional and I enjoy it quite a bit. All right, so what's it like to drive the Toyota Tundra? Well, obviously, like I said, the main benefit is going to be the smoothness that you get in driving this for a pickup truck. So that coil spring suspension is going to do a lot for the overall bumps. And I would say it actually impacts the driving characteristics of the Tundra so much that it really doesn't feel like a truck anymore. It's quite impressive. If anything, I would describe it as like feeling like a large SUV, which is quite nice. You have a fairly large steering wheel here. Visibility is pretty good. I will say the tow mirrors do feel like they tend to block a bit, but obviously the bigger mirrors is going to make it better for towing and technically makes it a little bit easier for checking your blind spot as well. But the general visibility does make some concerns for things like crosswalks of that nature. But overall, it's quite nice. The mix of the touchscreen there and the physical buttons you'll find here in the center is all in all a fantastic driving experience. And technically, physical buttons have been shown to be a little bit more safer in the grand scheme of things as far as driving goes. Now, as for acceleration, it's good. The thing gets up and goes. You get a little bit of in-cabin noise as well, which is a little bit vocal in terms of how the vehicle responds to you. And it's quite nice. You even get a little bit of a boost gauge and stuff like that, as well as a sort of battery meter for the hybrid system that's involved in this, because it is a mild hybrid with the iForce Max version of the Tundra. It's quite a nice vehicle. It's incredibly quiet in here, and that's even without the sound system and a little bit of air going. And I mean, it feels like a nice driving vehicle. Sure, it's not perfect, but you'll be hard-pressed to find a truck that is entirely perfect and checks every single box. But I'd like to think that the Tundra in itself is perhaps a huge improvement over the previous generations, assuming you buy the bigger engine. It's quite an interesting driving experience overall, but I'm most impressed with just the torque. I mean, this thing really gets up and goes when you want it to, so you certainly won't have a problem with general driving use of the truck, or even if you decide to go and use it for towing. It's quite a nice experience overall, and I could definitely recommend somebody get behind the wheel of this thing. So in conclusion, the Toyota Tundra is an awesome pickup truck that does a good job of differentiating itself from the competition. At the bare core of the truck, it is still very much a Toyota product, which could be a great thing or a bad thing depending on what your priorities are. I think it does a fantastic job in itself just as a truck with rear coil spring suspension, opting for a smoother ride over some of the competition, which is always great, especially when you can have it for some of the lower starting prices and still get cool features like that. It features the same old classic features like the Tundra rear sliding down window as well, which is a great feature for just enjoying your truck if you're going to be taking it off-road and into the outdoors a lot. It goes a long ways. It's certainly something I think you should consider when looking for your next half-ton pickup truck.